Hello and welcome to We Learn. Session 4, Cross Culture and Global Management, Cross Culture Leadership. Topic to be covered: Leadership Foundation, Managerial Beliefs about Work in Russia, Leadership Foundations again, Leadership in the International Context, Leadership in China, Leadership in Middle East, Leadership in the other developing countries, recent leadership finding, that is transformational transaction charismatics, Middle East versus Western management, culture clusters and leadership effectiveness, doing business in effective and neutral countries, that leadership tips, positive organization, scholarship and leadership, authentic leadership, cross-culture leadership, 6 insight from the global study, and yes, ethical responsibilities about the global leadership. Now yes, in this session we will going to understand about how leadership performed in the multi concept or the multi cultures. That means yes, according to the surroundings, according to the environment, the leadership styles will be different. कंट्री जिस भी इन्वायरमेंट में होती है, लीडरशिप स्टाइल उसी तरीके का होता है, लीडरशिप उसी तरीके की होती है. सो व्हाट दैट इज व्हाई द लीडरशिप कॉन्सेप्ट कम्स इनटू अ पिक्चर. दैट मीन्स कि जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं वो किस तरीके से एक क्रॉस कल्चर इन्वायरमेंट जब क्रिएट हो जाता है, उस केस में लीडर को कैसे क्रिएट करती है. सो लीडरशिप फाउंडेशंस को समझने से पहले कुछ चीज़ें हैं विच वी रियली नीड्स टू अंडरस्टैंड. व्हाट इज डिफरेंस बिटवीन मैनेजर्स वर्सेस लीडर. लीडर और मैनेजर के बीच में क्या डिफरेंस है. फर्स्ट, मैनेजर कैन लर्न स्किल्स नेसेसरी. मैनेजर्स के लिए ये स्किल्स जो होती हैं वो समझनी और उन्हें कोप अप करना, उन्हें अपने एक सेंस में लेना बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी होता है इफ द पर्सन वांट्स टू बी मैनेजर. whereas leaders is intent characteristics in innate characteristics in terms of उसके पास ऑलरेडी ये characteristics inbuilt होते हैं leaders के पास. Where managers can be take care of where you are and it was bringing out or controlling the each and every activities in the performance. But yes, leaders brings you to the new horizon. आपको एक नए dimensions, new thinking, new concept के अंदर leadership आपको लेकर जाते हैं. Whereas managers are very overseas kind of a thing. They were limited or they were just want to complete their projects, their concept. But yes, at the same time, leaders are more towards the motivation side and they used to motivate their followers. Managers normally point out the faults to improve on. मैनेजर्स का जो एटीट्यूड होता है टुवर्ड्स दी परफॉर्मेंसेस वो इस तरीके से होता है कि अगर हम एक क्रिटिसिज्म जनरेट करते हैं या अगर हम किसी भी तरीके के फॉल्स बताते हैं सबको, तो वो डेफिनेटली एक इम्प्रूवमेंट लेकर आएगा. जबकि लीडर्स जो होते हैं दे गिव अ रिकॉग्नाइजेशन ऑफ अ गुड वर्क. एक गुड वर्क की रिकॉग्नाइजेशन इज इन दी ट्रेड ऑफ अ लीडर. Another is managers deal with complexities. Managers जो है बहुत ज़्यादा complex environment में deal up करते हैं, complex environment में study करते हैं. पर जबकि जो leaders होते हैं they deal with the ambiguity. They actually work in the ambiguity kind of environment. The changing scenarios are changing, so how we have to update ourselves that with that changes. तो इन new concepts के साथ leaders आते हैं. Managers are fact finders, whereas leaders are the decisions maker. Managers are basically focuses on the efficiencies and leaders are basically focuses on the effectiveness. जहाँ पर managers बहुत ही efficiency पर काम करते हैं कि आपको efficient होना है, हर काम सही से करना है, without mistake करना है. वहीं पर leaders जो होते हैं they were more effective. वो उतने ही ज़्यादा effectiveness में आते हैं, effective होते हैं. And yes, at the same time managers are giving the immediate authority. Managers एक immediate authority provide करवाते हैं, whereas the leaders are earn the respect through the actions. और managers जो authority की वजह से एक respect लेते हैं, leaders वो अपनी actions की वजह से respect लेते हैं. That means they were more towards getting that respect from their actions. जो वो करते हैं उसकी वजह से उन्हें praise मिलती है. Managers follow the company's objective. कंपनीज के ऑब्जेक्टिव, जो कंपनीज के अल्टीमेट गोल्स हैं, कंपनीज की जो विजन्स हैं, उसी पर एक मैनेजर परफॉर्म करता है. whereas लीडर्स अपने ओन गोल सेट करता है एंड यस एट द सेम टाइम दे नो हाउ टू सेट अ न्यू स्टैंडर्ड. एक नया स्टैंडर्ड कैसे क्रिएट करना है. मैनेजर्स हैव अ प्रेजेंट विजन. एक प्रेजेंट में परफॉर्म करता है मैनेजर, बट लीडर ऑलवेज परफॉर्म इन द फ्यूचर विजन. whereas मैनेजर डू थिंग्स राइट, लीडर्स डू दी राइट थिंग्स. मैनेजर्स जहाँ पर चीज़ों को ठीक करता है, थिंग्स को, आपके एक्शंस को ठीक करता है, वहीं पर लीडर्स जो होते हैं दे एक्चुअली सही काम करते हैं. So that is leaders, that is the main difference between the managers and leaders, which now we come to know that yes कि managers और leaders के बीच में ये difference होता है. Now again in the leadership formation there was one of the very famous theory, or we can say that it is the one of the background of any kind of a leadership, that is theory X, Y and Z. In this theory they were basically stating that कि managers किस तरीके से अपनी team को lead करते हैं and how they were expecting their teams to as a, और इस केस में this theory is also help in motivating the employees. So theory X, theory Y and theory Z was basically stating about the people working in the organization और managers के किस तरीके के beliefs होते हैं. So theory X में a manager who believes that people are basically lazy and the concessions and the threats of a punishment often are necessary to get them to the work. This is again a kind of an attitude of a manager जहाँ पर वो ये बिलीव करते हैं कि उनकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जितने भी एम्प्लॉयज़ हैं या जितने भी परफॉर्मर्स हैं वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा लेजी काइंड ऑफ हैं और उन्हें किसी ना किसी तरीके को हर्शंस या किसी ना किसी तरीके की थ्रेट्स ऑफ पनिशमेंट देती रहनी चाहिए तभी वो काम परफॉर्म करते हैं. तो दिस इज़ वन ऑफ द एटीट्यूड ऑफ थ्योरी एक्स काइंड ऑफ एन managers. Theory Y, managers are those who believe that under the right condition people not only will work hard but will seek the increased responsibilities and challenges. This kind of people used to think that कि जो performers हैं organization के they were in the right condition people but not only will work hard but ये सिर्फ एक work hard सिर्फ मेहनत करना नहीं जानते हैं, ये अपनी responsibilities को समझते हैं, जो इनके पास इन्हें जो challenges मिलते हैं ये उन्हें समझते हैं. So managers who believe that under the right condition people will actually not that, सिर्फ हार्ड वर्कर्स नहीं है वो अपनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज जानते हैं, वो अपने चैलेंजेस जानते हैं. थ्योरी जेड was basically a manager who believes that the worker seeks the opportunity to participate in the management and are motivated by the teamwork and responsibility share. So this is the club of the theory X and theory Y. They were actually those kind of managers जिनका belief ये है कि worker seeks the opportunity to participate in the management. तो workers actually एक opportunity ढूंढते हैं हमेशा टू पार्टिसिपेट एंड यस एट द सेम टाइम इट इज रिक्वायर्ड टू मोटिवेट देम ताकि वो अपनी मैक्सिमम से मैक्सिमम रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी को शेयर अप कर सके. नाउ what is managerial belief about the Russia? Like yes, in the cross cultural and the global management subject we will going to understand कि एक different countries के अंदर किस किस तरीके के leadership style या किस किस तरीके के managerial belief होते हैं, just to getting the understanding about कि yes exact leadership कहाँ कहाँ किस तरीके से practice होती है और वो कैसे करनी चाहिए. सबसे पहले बिलीफ जो नाउ वी वर गोइंग टू स्टडी अबाउट द रशिया, तो सबसे पहला बिलीफ जो राइज होता है दैट इज द ह्यूमनिस्टिक बिलीफ. तो क्या किस तरीके का ह्यूमनिस्टिक बिलीफ है उस कंट्री में. सो दिस इज व्हाट वर्क कैन बी मेड मीनिंगफुल. एक वर्क जो है वो मीनिंगफुली काम किया जाता है. वन जॉब शुड गिव्स वन अ चांस टू ट्राई आउट द न्यू आइडिया. अगर आप एक तरीके का काम कर रहे हो तो वो आपको एक नया आइडिया जनरेट करके देगी. द वर्क प्लेस कैन बी ह्यूमनाइज्ड. एक कोऑर्डिनेशन एक ह्यूमनाइजेशन वहाँ पर होनी ज़रूरी है. वर्क कैन बी मेड सेटिस्फैक्शन. एक आपको वर्क से आपकी प्रॉपर सेटिस्फैक्शन मिल रही है. वर्क शुड अलाउ फॉर द यूज ऑफ द ह्यूमन कैपेबिलिटीज. वर्क कैन बी मीन्स ऑफ सेल्फ एक्सप्रेशन. Work should enable one to learn new things. Work can be organized to allow the human fulfillment. Work can be made interesting rather than boring. So the job should be a source of a new experience. So this is what the more towards the experience side, self expressions कि आपके अगर खुद के इंटरेस्ट हैं, आपकी खुद की अपनी लर्निंग्स हैं, सो आप उतनी ही ज़्यादा नई चीज़ों को लर्न करोगे, इंटरेस्ट जनरेट करोगे, न्यू एक्सपीरियंस गेन करोगे. इस तरीके के बिलीव्स वहाँ पर ज़्यादा हैं, ह्यूमनिस्टिक बिलीफ. Whereas organizational beliefs, it is what survival of the group is very important in the organization. Working with the group is better than working alone. It is the best to have a job as a part of the organization where all work together even if you don't get the individual credit. One should take an active part in all group affairs. The group is most important entity in any organization. One's contribution to the group is the most important things about one's work. And work is means to foster the group interest. So this is what the organization belief, that is it is rather than important to work individual. एक active participation होना ज़रूरी है. अगर आप actively perform कर रहे हो तो that's definitely your generating the interest, and you are actually moving towards the better performances of the organization. Work ethics, only those who depend on themselves get ahead in a life. This is one kind of a belief. Another is, to be superior, a person must stand alone. Third, a person can learn better on the job by sticking out boldly on his own things by following the advice of other. Fourth, one must avoid the dependency on the person whenever possible. Fourth, one should live one's life independent of others as much as possible. So this is what the work ethics kind of कि एक dependency नहीं होनी चाहिए. Yes, at the same time, if you want to perform, if you want to be ahead in life, तो उस केस में आपको उतना ही ज़्यादा perform भी करना पड़ेगा. एक unique feature बनाना पड़ेगा, अपनी life को independent करना पड़ेगा. So this kind of work ethics would be there. D, believes about participation in the managerial decisions. That means the working classes should have more say in a running society. Factories would be better run if the workers had more of a say in a management. Workers should be more active in making the decisions about the product, finance and capital investment. Workers should be represent on the board of directors of the company. So this is the belief about the participation, that it is required, that we can judge that कि एक participation level हमेशा एक अच्छा रहता है. That means work should be more active in making decisions. Lazy ethics was the trend towards more lazy is not the good thing. More lazy time is good for the people. Increased leisure time is bad for the society. Leisure time activities are more interesting than work. The present trend towards the shorter work week is to be encouraged. That is what the leisure ethic. That means जो people हैं वहाँ के, they love the leisure time, but yes, at the same time they know that जो भी activity एक leisure time में होती है वो बहुत interesting होती है, but at the same time the leisure activity is not good for the work and they actually lead the effect on your performances. Another belief is the metrics related belief. This is what the free enterprise system mainly benefit the rich and powerfuls. The rich did not make much of the contribution to the society. Workers get their fair share on the economy reward of society. The work of a laboring class is exploited by the rich of the others' benefit. Wealthy people carry their fair shares of the burdens of a life in this country, and yes, the most important work is done by the laboring class. So this is what the matrix related belief कि जितने भी फ्री सिस्टम एंटरप्राइजेस होते हैं वो उतने ही ज़्यादा रिच और उतने ही ज़्यादा पावरफुल होते चले जाते हैं, whereas रिच कभी सोसाइटीज़ में कंट्रीब्यूट नहीं करते हैं. मेनली जो वर्क परफॉर्म किया जाता है हार्ड वर्क लेवल पर वो लेबर ही परफॉर्म करती है. सो दिस काइंड ऑफ एन बिलीफ वाज एक्चुअली गिवन from the Russia's point of view. So now in that case, yes, what kind of a behavior and style could be formed out? So किस तरीके के लीडरशिप बिहेवियर और स्टाइल्स जो हैं एक्चुअली क्रिएट हो सकते हैं? तीन तरीके से क्रिएट हो सकते हैं. वन इज अथॉरिटेंट, अनदर इज द पैरेंटलिस्टिक, अनदर इज पार्टिसिपेटिव. So in the authoritant, the use of the work-centric behavior designed to ensure the task acknowledgement, that is accomplishment in terms of कि task को complete करने के लिए जब पूरा काम का जो कंट्रोल होता है बहुत ज़्यादा सेंट्रलाइज्ड होता है और बहुत ही ज़्यादा आपको किसी भी तरीके की एक्टिविटी परफॉर्म करने से पहले यू हैव टू टेक अ परमिशन फ्रॉम योर बॉस और यू हैव द fully controlled by your boss. So that comes into the authoritant. And the Parentalistic is basically use of the work-centric behavior coupled with the projective employee-centered concern. So this is what it is related to the behavior which is coupled with the protective employee-centered. That means the concern of employees. Employees का concern क्या है? Employees किस लेवल पर परफॉर्म करना चाहते हैं, उनके क्या कैपेबिलिटीज़ हैं, वो कितना परफॉर्म कर सकते हैं, ये तरीके के कॉन्सेप्ट पर जब एक लीडर आता है दैट कम्स इनटू द पैरेंटलिस्टिक. whereas participative is more towards the use of both work and task in the centered point and the people centric approach also to lead the subordinate. So subordinate से काम करवाने के लिए जब आप main center point जो होता है दोनों ही होते हैं वर्क एंड टास्क, whereas the authoritative is more related to the task part और parentalistic जो होते हैं वो बहुत ज़्यादा people part आते हैं. So that comes into the participative, the combination of both. This is the basically diagram which is related to the अथॉरिटेंट लीडर की जो अथॉरिटी बेस्ड लीडर्स होते हैं वो किस तरीके से परफॉर्म करते हैं. तो वन वे डाउनवर्ड फ्लो वी कैन सी इन एरो कि जितना भी फ्लो है वो वन वे है. दैट मीन्स इट्स ओनली रिलेटेड टू दी डाउनफॉल काइंड ऑफ द डाउनवर्ड साइड. जितने भी ऑर्डर्स हैं, जितनी भी इंफॉर्मेशन हैं वो डाउन टूवर्ड्स आ रही हैं, कोई भी अप टूवर्ड्स नहीं जा रही. So this is the one-way downfall information and influence from the authority and leaders to the subordinate. Another is parentalistic leader. Parentalistic leaders are basically now we can see that there was a two-way communication and continuation part. The subordinate can put their viewpoints to their leader. So it is what continual interaction and exchange of information and influence between leaders and subordinates. So it is what exchange of the information and influence between the leaders and subordinate. This is the kind of the chart, or we can say that it is one of the theory who were giving the idea about the participative thing कि participation concepts को कैसे clear up किया जाता है. We can see that on the x-axis it is concern of the production task. वो मैनेजर्स जो सिर्फ टास्क ओरिएंटेड होते हैं लाइक अथॉरिटिकेशंस, एंड वो मैनेजर्स जो कि सिर्फ एक रिलेशन ओरिएंटेड होते हैं लाइक पेरेंटल. सो इन दैट केस अगर हम पार्टिसिपेटिव की बात करते हैं तो उसमें किस तरीके से एक प्रॉपर मैनेजमेंट का करेक्टरिस्टिक्स होना चाहिए, वो किस तरीके से परफॉर्म करेगा. दिस ग्रिड इज बेसिकली मेंशनिंग दैट. ग्रिड इज एक्चुअली गिविंग द 5 डिफरेंट स्टाइल ऑफ अ मैनेजमेंट कि मैनेजमेंट के क्या तरीके हो सकते हैं, क्या स्टाइल्स हो सकते हैं. सो मैनेजमेंट के स्टाइल को डिफाइन करते हुए यस देयर आर फर्स्ट ग्रिड, और वी कैन से दैट द फर्स्ट एरिया इज द management style, which is 1-1. It is related to the managers or management which is actually put a minimum efforts to get required work done in the appropriate to the substantial organization membership. That means they were those management styles जिनका concern people पर भी नहीं है, and yes at the same time जिनका concern नहीं productions पर है. So they were having actually a minimum efforts, or they were putting minimum efforts and minimum interest in both the concern. Another grade is 1-9. 1-9 is a management style which is thoughtful attention to need for a people for satisfying the relationship led to comfortably friendly organization atmosphere and work temper. That means the organization attitude or management attitude is more towards side the friendly manners. They were very much comfortable area or comfortable zone in the organization, because the management of the organization very much concerned with the people and the relationship created by those people. So that comes into the management style, whereas they were least interested in the task and production concept. So this is one of the style in the management. Another grade is the 9-1. 9-1 is management style which is efficiency in operations result from agreeing condition of the work in such a way that human element interface to the minimum degrees. In this concept they were more towards the condition of the work, how we can achieve. They were more focused towards the task part rather than didn't focus or consider the people and people's relationship or human elements conducted in the organization. Fourth grade is 9-9 grade. This is what the management style where the accomplishment is from committed people. Independency through a common stake in the organization purpose lead to the relationship and trust and respect. अगर आप अपने एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में एम्प्लॉइज को एक स्पेस प्रोवाइड करवाएंगे, एक ट्रस्ट जनरेट करेंगे, सो वो एक कमिटमेंट लीड करेगा एंड दैट कमिटमेंट वुड फर्दर लीड टूवर्ड्स द हायर परफॉर्मेंस. इस तरीके के कॉन्सेप्ट पर अगर मैनेजमेंट चलती है तो इट इज 9-1. And yes, the last kind of leadership grade is 5-5. 5-5 is basically one of the educate organization performance. Is possible through balancing the necessities to get out work with the maintaining the morale of the people at the satisfactory level. So in that case, this is the organization जो एक satisfactory level पर पहुंच जाती है. Organization knows कि people relationship concern को और production concern दोनों concerns को manage कैसे करना है. So that comes into the management style. Now लीडरशिप इन द इंटरनेशनल कंटेक्स्ट. एक लीडर जो है वो इंटरनेशनल कंटेक्स्ट में कैसे है. सो हाउ लीडर इन द अदर कंट्री अटेम्प्ट टू डायरेक्ट एंड इन्फ्लुएंस देयर सबऑर्डिनेट्स. इंटरनेशनल अप्रोचेस टू द लीडरशिप स्टाइल. Research shows there are both similarities and differences in it. Most international researchers have focused upon the Europe, East Asia, Middle East, and yes, at the same time, the developing countries like India and Argentina. So in that context, yes, we will going to study about the leadership in all this context. So European managers trends to use a participative approach. Researchers investigate the four area relevant to the leadership. So Europe concept में Europe managers basically tend to have the participative kind of a nature and the leadership style. वो बहुत believe करते हैं कि organization में एक participative environment होना चाहिए. So researchers basically invested the four areas. The first area is capacity of a leadership and initiatives. That is the किस तरीके से एक लीडर जो एक लीडरशिप है उसके लिए अगर प्रॉपर लीडर कॉन्सेप्ट चाहिए तो एक प्रॉपर इनिशिएटिव्स होने चाहिए फ्रॉम द साइड ऑफ अ लीडर एंड यस दैट पर्सन इज अ कैपेबल इनफ. अगर वो एक कैपेबिलिटीज नहीं है उसकी सो दैट्स ऑटोमेटिकली शोज कि उसमें एक लीडरशिप क्वालिटी नहीं है. Second is sharing the information and objectives. When the person is actually performing and working on to sharing the information and objective, अगर वो एक information sharing नहीं करता है तो probably the person would be led off. वो एक पीछे रह जाएगा या वो किसी आगे अच्छे से perform नहीं कर पाएगा. So that is what the sharing information. It is general versus detailed, the completed instructions about the subordinate. Yes, the third context is the participativeness. That is leadership support for the participative leadership. ज़रूरी है leadership का एक participative environment को conduct करना. And fourth is the internal control. Internal control is basically leaders control through the external and internal means. किस तरीके से एक leader control करेंगे अपने external and internal means को. Then in terms of the role of a level, size and age of the European managers attitude towards the leadership. एक जो European managers के concept होते हैं towards the leadership, what is that? They are higher level managers trying to express more domestic democratic value than lower level managers in the some countries. In other countries the opposite is true. That is the higher level managers basically working on to express more democratic value. हाँ बहुत ही ज़्यादा democratic values को create किया जाता है on the lower level managers. And yes, at the same time company size tends to influence the degree of the participative and autocratic attitude. अगर हमें एक ऑटोक्रिएटिक और पार्टिसिपेटिव एटीट्यूड के बीच में कुछ डिफाइन करना है कि उनकी क्या डिग्री है, किस तरीके की अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, तो उस केस में एक कंपनी साइज बहुत मैटर करता है. दैट कंपनीज इन ऑन अ लार्ज स्पेस और इन दी स्मॉल कंपनी. Younger managers were more likely to have a democratic values in the leadership and initiative, information sharing and objectives. So जितने भी younger managers होते हैं, they were actually again more towards the democratic part and they were more towards the interactive information sharings and objective. Another is the European leadership practices conclusions. जो जितने भी दोस्त previous हमने study किया about the Europe उसमें एक conclusion part है. That is most European managers tends to reflect more participative and democratic attitude. So managers का बहुत ही ज़्यादा participative और democratic attitude होता है. Organization level, company size, age was putting a great influence attitude towards the leadership. Leadership के style पर बहुत ज़्यादा influence आता है. Organization किस level की है, company किस size की है, manager खुद किस age का है. Many young people from the studies are now in the middle-age Europe managers who are highly likely to be more participative than the older counterpart in 60s and 70s. So the young generation or the young managers are more towards the participative side और वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा participative sides को promote करते हैं. So this is the exact picture of the leadership context in the Europe. Another is the leadership context in the Japan side. How the Japan is performing basically. So Japan is well known for its parentalistic approach. That is, it is approach to the leadership. इनकी जो approach होती है वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा parentalistic होती है. That means the Japanese culture was basically promote a high safety and security needs to their employees. And yes, at the same time which is present amongst the home country based employees as well as the MNC's expert areas. So in that case, Japan's managers have a much greater belief in the capacity of subordinate for the leadership and initiative than do managers in the most other countries. So only managers in the Anglo-American countries have a stronger feeling in this area. So in that case, yes, Japan managers are parental side पर होने की वजह से they were having a more belief on the capacity of employees, that person can do it, they can perform it, they can take an initiative, और उनके caring factors बहुत ज़्यादा होते हैं. Now the Japan versus USA style, जो leadership style है उन दोनों के बीच में difference क्या है? Employment basis में Japan was often for a life. It is always caring and providing the securities to their employees. So they were more towards the life side. Whereas in the USA they were often into the short term basis. In the evaluations, they actually slow. In evaluation they take many years to evaluate, but USA is a little fast and those not promoted often leave. So in case में leave भी नहीं होती है, बहुत ज़्यादा fast and towards the evaluation. Career path में it's very general based on the rotations job, but yes at the same time it's USA, it's specialized people stay in one area. वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा स्पेशलाइज्ड परफॉर्मेंस में होते हैं, उनकी अपनी स्पेशल टेक्निक्स और अपनी उनकी स्पेशल स्किल होती है और वो उसी के अंदर परफॉर्म करते हैं. डिसीजन मेकिंग में ग्रुप बेस्ड डिसीजन मेकिंग होती है जापान के अंदर, जबकि यूएसए के अंदर इट्स वुड बी बाय इंडिविजुअल मैनेजर्स. जो इंडिविजुअल मैनेजर्स हैं वही डिसीजंस लेता है. कंट्रोल मैकेनिज्म इन जापान इट्स इम्प्लिसिट, इट्स इनफॉर्मल, इट बेसिकली द रिलायंस ऑन द ट्रस्ट एंड गुडविल. Whereas in USA it's explicit and yes based on the knowing the control mechanism. अगर कंट्रोल जापान में देखा जाए तो वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा ट्रस्ट बेस्ड, बहुत ही ज़्यादा इनफॉर्मल बेसिस पर कंट्रोल किया जाता है, गुडविल जनरेट करते हुए, जबकि यूएसए में उसका कम्प्लीटली उल्टा होता है. रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज फैक्टर्स आर बेसिकली शेयर्ड कलेक्टिवली. जितनी भी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज होती हैं वो कलेक्टिवली शेयर की जाती हैं. But yes, at the same time in Japan it will be shared collectively. Whereas in USA ये individually assign की जाती है और individually ही perform भी करवाई जाती है. Then concern for the employees, it is the broad and cover the whole life. उस केस में हम जो employees से related concerns हैं वो उनकी life से related है. And USA में it's limited to work life. और उस केस में leadership USA के अंदर बहुत से managers के concept style based या life based नहीं होते हैं, life focused नहीं होते हैं. Leadership in China now. So then we can say that the new generation group scored significantly higher on the individualism than did the current and the older generation group. They also scored significantly lower than the other group on the collective and the conformism. So this is what it is. These value appears to reflect the period of relative openness and freedom, often called as the social reform era in which these new managers grew up. So they have had a great exposure to the Western societal influence and may result in the leadership style similar to the Western managers. So the leadership style in the China is little more similar to what the Western managers and Western society. And yes, at the same time, they were very much dependent in the new generations, new concept, new individualization concept, and they were actually reflecting that there was the social reform era is actually going on. What is the leadership style in the Middle East? There are maybe much greater similarity between the Middle East leadership style and the Western countries. जितने भी Middle East और Western countries हैं उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा similarities हैं and they were similar as the Western East. जैसे कि we take the example of USA, तो USA में जितने भी Middle East countries हैं उनका बहुत ज़्यादा मिलता है. Western management basically practices are evident in the Arabian Gulf region due to the close business ties between the West and this oil-rich area, as well as the increasing the educational attainment often in the Western universities of the Middle East managers. Leadership in the Middle East is again the organization culture is basically depends on the technology, the education, the responsibilities which is predicted by the decision making style. तो जिस तरीके के आप decisions लेते हो, it is always depend upon your cultures, your technologies, your education, your responsibilities, and there is a tendency towards participative leadership style amongst the young Arab middle managers as well as amongst the highly educated workers of all age. Leadership in the other developing country, this is what the managerial attitude in India are similar to the Anglo-American towards the capacity of a leadership and initiative. So participation and the internal control, but different in sharing information and objectives. Leadership style is basically the pronoun and may much closer to those of the United States that previously assumed, and developing countries maybe move towards a more participative leadership. Yeah, they are democratic. जितनी भी developing countries हैं वो सारी एक participative behavior की तरफ जा रही हैं. They were performed by the participative factors, but they need to move more ahead towards that. Now, what is different between the Middle East and Western management? Middle East management में leadership is basically highly authoritative tone, rigid instructions, too many management directive, whereas in the Western less emphasizes on the leaders' personalities, considerable weight on the leader's style and performance. In organization structure, it is highly bureaucratic and over-centric with the power and authority at the top, vague relationship and ambiguity and unpredictable organization environment. Whereas in the Western's manager, it is less bureaucratic environment, more delegations of authority would be there. Decision making के अंदर ad hoc planning decisions made at the highest level of the management, unwilling to take the high risk inherent in the decisions making. But yes, at the same time, in the Western's management, it is sophisticated planning technique, more modern tool of the decision business, embodied the management information system. Then another is the performance evaluation and control. It is related to the informal control mechanism, which is routine check on the performances. Lack of vague performances are basically evaluation system. And yes, at the same time, it is a fairly advanced control system in the Western management and focuses on the cost reduction. Another is the personal policy. This is what these policies are having heavy reliance on the personal contact and get influence from the right social opinion to the full major position. So sound personal management policies candidate qualify are usually the basis of the selection decisions. Communication, the tones depend upon the communicant's social position, power, family influences, or even the present factors. And his signers of command must be followed. You get lead people related to each other tightly and specifically was there. And yes, in the time of Western management, it is the sound personal management policies. Candidate qualifications are usually the basis of the selection decisions. And yes, stress upon the qualities and the minimizations of the differences. The people related to the each other loosely and generally, friendship may not be intended and binding. So there are few questions which you have to do it yourself. First is what culture would be most likely to be perceived difference between the managerial एंड लीडरशिप ड्यूटी, तो किस तरीके का एक कल्चर जो है वो अडॉप्ट करना चाहिए. एंड अनदर इज व्हाट डू यूएसए मैनेजर्स नीड टू नो अबाउट द लीडरशिप इन द इंटरनेशनल अरीना. आइडेंटिफाई एंड डिस्क्राइब द 3 important guidelines that can be of the practical values. So this is all about for the today's session. We were winding up here. Thank you so much. Happy learning. We learn.